Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hot Topic.
Yes. Well, I mean, I was quite taken aback. Well, actually, I'll just explain, folks, because what happened was I've been watching the BBC Paula Vennell's post office thing, and suddenly they were talking about an announcement from Number 10. Now, I know that Fiona doesn't watch live BBC, but I'm still paying the license, so I do. And I'm kind of typing, I think it's going to be an announcement. They're saying it's going to be about the election, and a bit of me went, oh, I hope not. Oh no, if it's going to be that quick. And then one of the BBC people said, oh well, it's not necessarily going to be immediate. He could be making an announcement that it'll happen in August or September. And then someone else comes in and says, no, I don't think they do that. Anyway, it all happened, didn't it? Gosh, just 6 weeks.
I thought that something would happen. I thought it was actually going to happen in May on the grounds that he'd said it was going to be October. So I knew that the one day it wasn't going to be was October.
Yeah, well, I suppose. Yeah, that's right. The more cynical we are, the more dates you could kind of gradually you'll have noticed, folks, I'm afraid. Well, I'm not afraid, actually. It's really nice.
Water.
It was just earlier. I thought I may have reached election fatigue very, very quickly. But
it was about 20 minutes after the announcement.
About 20 minutes. God, the poor bloke. He was soaked, wasn't he? It was pouring down. He was really soaked. And then there was music. Did you hear that later on?
No, I've not seen it.
You know how sometimes they do think, especially sort of post-COVID thing, that they're doing an announcement in Downing Street, and there's a crowd of protesters up the far end on the main road at top of Downing Street yelling in, and sometimes you can't hear them. Well, this time suddenly there's all this music, and I'm going, oh, for goodness sake, who is that? Well, I sort of vaguely thought I recognised the music, but later on I heard someone saying, it was the music that the Labour Party used in the run-up to the 1997 election.
Oh, was that Things Can Only Get Better?
Things Can Only Get Better. And it must have been coming from outside Downing Street, but it was really loud. I just thought it wasn't a good thing to do. I mean, I dare say it wasn't a formal, official Labour Party thing. It was probably just someone out there, but someone out there who'd come with the music, actually. But
yeah, it's a bit. Yeah. But what I thought was really funny, though, because I was just finding out about it as you posted, because I don't have BBC. There was a point where you said, Sunak's really wet. And I thought, yeah, he is a bit wet. And then I saw a picture, and it was actually pouring.
It was pouring. So, I mean, I must admit, I you can feel yourself getting a bit excited about it. But to be honest, my first response was, he must be doing this because he thinks it will get even worse for the Tories if he hangs on. Labour, probably ready to go anyway, but I'm not so sure that that's the case for us in Scotland. I mean, I was sort of remembering about, 2017 in a way, at least back then, as I seem to recall, SNP got a bit, they weren't quite ready for that election being called. And I'm wondering if that might not be the same.
We've just had John Swinney only just taking over as First Minister a matter of weeks. There's still things floating around that can come back to bite them, not least court cases, all sorts of things. But my concern really is, and I'm just sort of, we are not party political on this podcast, but for a general election, first past the post, really, the SNP is the only one that's going to get any seats.
Yeah.
So in thinking about how are they going to manage that, I think they're in a really difficult position, because if they go all out and say, a majority for us means we start negotiations and, let's vote SNP for independence, which is the only rallying cry that's really going to get people fired up if they're independent supporters. If they go out for that and then they lose a load of seats, that allows the narrative that, they don't really want independence then, do they?
Well, only if they don't get a majority of seats. I mean, if they don't get a majority of seats, it will get called like that. But I mean, if they do, then...
If they get a majority of seats, fine, because that was their strategy. That was it. We get our constitutional commission up and running. Yeah. But then, if they don't go all guns blazing for independence, we know what happens at elections where they say this isn't about independence. And people just go, well, then I'm not voting for you then.
Well, we've come up with the slogan, haven't we?
We have. We did. Now,
we
what
have.
was it?
We will announce it. Let's announce it because we may as well tell Mr. Sweeney right now. Actually, that we come up with it.
He might be sitting there racking his brains right now.
He might. Yes, he might. He might be racking his brains. So what it is?
Yeah.
Vote SNP to end the union.
Yes, that was it.
I think
it's really cool. Vote SNP to end the union. And that's what we want them to do. You don't need to write screeds of paper on a manifesto. That'll do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they probably have to write a few other things. But yeah, basically that's it. That's the main. If that went out as the main message, I would be pleased about that. Because like yourself, I mean, it's first past the post. I don't see any point in voting for anyone else. And I would quite like to ask some of the people from the other parties, well, Alba and the Greens, just why they are standing people. It makes no sense. I mean, fair enough for Holyrood, that's when their time's there, and of course they would do it, might even vote for them, but for this, I think it's madness.
Well, I just think it's throwing away. I mean, on the one hand, democracy demands that you should be able to vote for anybody you want to, and you can only do that if they're standing candidates. So I get that. Yeah. But on the other hand, when it's first past the post, and you lose your deposit if you don't get enough votes. So to stand candidates, you're having to put a lot of party money and then pay for promotionals and leaflets and get somebody delivering. There's a lot of cost goes with that, which is kind of wasted effort if you're not then going to result in I suppose you could say it's experience, which it is. Maybe it's a way of training people up for having conversations on doorsteps. There is probably benefit, but in terms of
the possible disadvantages of if Labour are breathing down SNP's necks on a constituency, and then enough people vote for other independence supporting parties at the general election that Labour sneak through.
It might not be enough to get them a seat, but it's enough to lose somebody else their seat.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So another couple of things that went through my mind after that announcement was, I was thinking, the 4th of July. Well, that's in the Scottish school holidays. There will be some people who will be off on holiday. The end of the holidays will come. It's the end of June. So if that's a Thursday, could well be the previous Friday.
So they need to get.
And again, I heard someone on the BBC saying, "Well, of course, you had to avoid school holidays." And I'm going, but you mean the English school holidays,
in England.
Not our school. So I guess that then prompted my next thought, which is, I just hope people have sorted themselves out with postal votes, especially for that reason. But for other reasons as well, just kind of get the postal vote sorted.
Yeah, and get registered to vote as well, because now there's only 6 weeks. That's the thing. And I saw a snippet on, I think it was Twitter maybe, that earlier about somebody was saying, can't former serving people use their military ID? And he's going, well, if you do that, it opens the door to students being able to use theirs. And you think, well, why would you want them to be able to vote, not students? Who's most likely to vote Tory? Probably not the students. So And then what we don't know as well in Scotland is because of these boundary changes, which if you look at them, they don't make sense if you were trying to make proper constituencies. They do make sense if you're trying to divide and conquer, because if you take the one I'm in, Clackmannanshire, it was all of Clackmannanshire, but now it's half of Clackmannanshire and Grangemouth, which is over the river. Completely different council, completely different set of issues, and Grangemouth, of course, being a bit of a political hot potato right now. They're having to do a lot of relationship building, even just to get to know their opposite number, and all the linkages that they've built up over the years, they're having to start again and make new ones, which is quite disruptive. And then on the other half of, like where I am in Clackmannanshire, I'm now part of Dunfermline. Nothing about Dunfermline's politics,
You can understand the reason. I mean, they were trying to make them all sort of roughly the same size, weren't they? But the constituency. But of course, they were also reducing the number of them. And that's something that's going to affect Wales as well. I mean, they've lost actually quite a lot of MPs.
And at the end of the day, you know, whether we've got 60, whether we've got 120, doesn't matter, because we're still going to be outvoted by whoever wins. So,
exactly.
You know, I mean, the one thing I hope that doesn't start being the SNP's slogan is this: vote for us to give Scotland a voice at Westminster, because I don't want them to have a voice. I don't want them to be at Westminster, you know, and I certainly don't have any evidence.
We'd better just get that email sent off to, you know, John Swinney and say that here is the campaign slogan: vote SNP to stop the union. We are thinking of doing some extra podcasts, aren't we? We just haven't quite got the title yet, but we've got some good titles.
But what we can do, we will let our listeners tell us what your favorite is of these. You can either put it in the comments or put it in the community tab, or email us indypodcasters@gmail.com, and we'll read them out. If these are if they're clean, we'll read them out. So three possibles: election postbox, Manifesto Madness. Quite like that one.
I like that one.
Democracy Delivered.
Yeah, they would all work, wouldn't they?
They've all got a theme of kind of putting something through a letterbox, which is probably what we're going to get a lot of.
Or into a ballot box.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's clever. That's double-edged, that one. So if any of those strike you, let us know what your favorite is, or if you come up with something even better, we'll probably be the second week in June when we start. Yeah, and we'll try and get some.
Once I'm back from a holiday.
Once Marlene's back from a holiday.
The idea is that Fiona and I will do something a bit like what we're doing just now, but we'll be talking about what's been happening in that, you know, immediate sort of previous few days, because, you know, things go really quickly on that sort of campaign speed. So we'll be talking about that. We might we might just be the two of us. We might have a guest in the studio with us, and bring a bit of our take on what's going on.
So if you like the sound of that, welcome to join us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cheers,
okay.
then.
Well, bye.